Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are very happy to share with you different stories about love and betrayal from around the world. So let's begin our story journey today. Please, don't come to my sister's wedding. Iris's voice carried a hint of pleading, but more than that, indifference. Why? Ethan stood in the middle of the living room, still holding the pipe wrench he had just cleaned. As a technician at the sewage treatment plant, he had just fixed the sink at home, and this was the third time he repeated the same question to his wife. Iris sighed, her gaze drifting toward the window. I don't want others to know you're just a cleaner. In that moment, Ethan felt like a knife had stabbed his heart. 6 years of marriage, suddenly becoming so strange in this moment. There's a world of difference between a wastewater treatment technician and a cleaner, but in Iris's eyes, he was just someone who handled garbage. I understand, Ethan said quietly, his voice filled with deep pain. Iris coldly added, I'll say you're dead to me. Never contact me again. Ethan left their jointly built home with tears in his eyes. He didn't argue, didn't defend himself, just silently packed the necessary items and then turned around and walked out the door. 6 years of love, crushed in the gap of social status. On the wedding day, Ethan's phone kept ringing nonstop. First Iris, then her sister Zoe, then her parents. Even those relatives who had previously ignored him called. He chose to put his phone on silent, walking alone along the river, reflecting on the beginning and end of this marriage. 6 years ago, Ethan, with his environmental engineering degree, joined the local sewage treatment plant with great enthusiasm. Unlike most of his classmates who chose high-paying consulting firms, he chose this job that directly served the community. At that time, his father, a retired factory worker, asked with concern, Son, are you sure you want to work in that kind of place? Everyone wants clean water and air, Dad, Ethan replied. But few are willing to purify them with their own hands. I want to be that person. He first met Iris at a community health clinic event. At that time, Iris had just graduated from nursing school and was working as a junior nurse at the community hospital. She was responsible for checking the blood pressure of volunteers participating in the clinic, and Ethan was one of those volunteers. Sewage treatment plant. When she heard about Ethan's job, Iris raised an eyebrow, but then displayed a genuine smile. That must be very meaningful. I see sick people every day, but you're working at the source of disease prevention. After that day, they began dating. Iris admired Ethan's sense of responsibility and professional knowledge, while Ethan was attracted by Iris's kindness and respect for life. A year later, they got married. You know what? You're more valuable than those suited-up bankers, Iris often said to Ethan in the early days of their marriage. You make every drop of water in this city clean. Their life wasn't luxurious, but it was full of warmth and hope. Ethan was busy every day dealing with complex water quality issues, while Iris focused on her nursing work, hoping to be promoted someday. On weekends, they liked to walk by the nearby lake, where Ethan would excitedly explain the workings of the aquatic ecosystem, while Iris shared stories from the hospital. 3 years later, the turning point appeared. Iris was promoted to head nurse, responsible for managing the entire surgical nursing team. This position allowed her to start interacting with the hospital's middle and upper management and various medical equipment suppliers. With her promotion, she began attending more hospital social events and meeting people from different circles. We should celebrate your promotion, Ethan suggested. How about a picnic by the lake this weekend? Iris frowned. A picnic? No, I want to go to the new French restaurant in the North District. I heard the hospital director frequently goes there too. The restaurant's price far exceeded their daily budget, but Ethan didn't hesitate and immediately made a reservation. That night, Iris wore a newly bought dress, while Ethan wore his wedding suit. When they were seated, Iris visibly relaxed. This is how life should be, she murmured, looking around at the other diners, most dressed in fine suits or gleaming with jewelry. Midway through dinner, a tall man wearing a tailored suit approached their table. Iris, what a coincidence, the man smiled, then turned his gaze to Ethan. You must be Iris's husband. I'm Reed, the regional manager of Biotech Medical. Reed is responsible for our hospital's equipment supply, Iris explained, with a hint of excitement in her voice. He just helped us upgrade all our monitoring equipment. Just doing my job, Reed said modestly, but his eyes remained fixed on Iris. By the way, Will your hospital be sending representatives to next week's medical technology exhibition? Oh, I'm not sure, Iris replied. I'll need to check with the director. If you're interested, I can arrange it. Biotech has VIP tickets, including seminars and dinners. Reed took out a business card and handed it to Iris. Contact me anytime. After Reed left, Iris's eyes sparkled with excitement. Did you see his watch? It's a luxury brand, at least $30,000. I don't know much about watches, Ethan said honestly. But he certainly seems successful. Successful? He's practically a star in the medical industry. He became a regional manager at 35, responsible for operations in 3 states. They say his annual salary exceeds $400,000. Ethan was surprised by his wife's level of knowledge about Reed's personal situation, but he didn't think much of it. In the following weeks, Iris began frequently mentioning Reed's name. Reed says their company is about to launch a new blood analysis system. Reed invited me to attend next week's medical seminar. Reed thinks our hospital should upgrade the ICU equipment. Whenever Ethan mentioned his work at the sewage treatment plant, Iris would show obvious impatience. Once, when he was excitedly talking about a newly developed filtration technology, Iris directly interrupted him. Could you stop always talking about dirty water and sludge? I can't believe I married someone who deals with garbage every day. Her words fell like cold water on Ethan. From then on, he began to restrain himself from talking about his work at home. At the same time, Iris began attending various hospital and industry events more and more frequently. Sometimes she would return home very late at night, with a faint smell of alcohol and perfume. When Ethan asked, he always received the same answer. Hospital matters, you wouldn't understand. The change was silent. First, it was an expensive watch Iris bought, claiming it was a reward the hospital gave to outstanding employees. Then it was that diamond necklace she happened to see at the mall. Then her social media account began showing check-ins at luxury restaurants and clubs. Ethan began to suspect, but he didn't want to believe the worst possibility. He worked hard, hoping to get a promotion at the sewage treatment plant to prove his worth. At the same time, he also tried to understand Iris's new world, even suggesting attending the hospital's family day events. Not necessary. Iris refused, with a tone of contempt in her voice. Those events are boring, and most are for the families of upper management and doctors. You wouldn't be interested. One afternoon, Ethan left work early, wanting to surprise Iris. It was their wedding anniversary, and he bought a bouquet of lilies, her favorite flowers, planning to take her to the restaurant where they had their first date. When he arrived at the hospital parking lot, he saw Iris from a distance talking with a suited man next to a silver Mercedes. The man affectionately caressed Iris's cheek and then kissed her gently. Iris didn't reject him, but smiled in response, and even willingly nestled in his arms. Ethan stood there, the lilies falling to the ground, crushed by passing cars. He recognized the man. It was Reed. At that moment, the world seemed to stop. 6 years of marriage, crumbling in a second. But Ethan didn't rush forward to confront them, nor did he create a scene. He quietly left, returned home, and began to sort out his thoughts and evidence. The following week, Ethan acted as usual, showing no abnormalities, while beginning to pay attention to every move Iris made. He discovered that his wife's behavior pattern had changed markedly. Her phone had a new password and was never left unattended. She often took her phone into the bathroom while showering. Her social media accounts had privacy settings, something that had never happened before. More suspiciously, Iris began showing unusual generosity regarding their financial situation. We should change cars, she suddenly suggested one day. I like the BMW X5. We can't afford it, Ethan calmly replied. Unless the bank lends us $60,000. Actually, I have some additional income. Iris hesitated for a moment. The hospital has a special bonus program. Ethan knew the hospital's salary structure. That special bonus didn't exist. He decided to investigate further. One night when Iris was on night duty, Ethan decided to check the family computer. There was an encrypted folder in their shared cloud storage, but Iris had forgotten to log out. He found dozens of emails between her and Reed, ranging from suggestive flirtation to explicit date arrangements, to recent discussions about medical equipment procurement. Dear Reed, as you said, I've already convinced the director to consider your proposal. These devices are certainly 20% more expensive, but that part you promised will make it all worthwhile, right? Looking forward to Friday's dinner. Love, Iris. The part mentioned in the email caught Ethan's attention. Upon further searching, he found scans of several bank deposit receipts. In the past 6 months, Iris's personal account had received anonymous transfers totaling over $100,000. The timing perfectly coincided with several major equipment purchases by the hospital. Ethan's heart sank. This wasn't just an affair, but also involved kickbacks and bribes in medical procurement. Iris had not only betrayed their marriage, but possibly also broken the law. But she didn't even recognize the seriousness of the problem, immersed in the satisfaction of luxury items and vanity. He saved this evidence and continued investigating. Through the hospital's public bidding information, he discovered that Reed's company had won all the equipment orders from the community hospital in the past 6 months, with prices clearly higher than the market average, sometimes even 30% higher. This meant that possibly tens of thousands of dollars of public medical funds were being misappropriated or wasted. While Ethan was considering his next step, Iris asked him not to attend her sister's wedding. At that moment, he understood his true position in his wife's heart, a cleaner who embarrassed her. The night he left the house, Ethan stayed in a simple motel. The next morning, he contacted Marcus, a law school classmate from his college days, to consult in detail about divorce procedures and evidence requirements. These emails and bank records are sufficient as evidence for infidelity, Marcus said. But regarding medical kickbacks, you'll need more direct evidence to report to the relevant authorities. Ethan nodded. I not only want to end this marriage, but also expose this scam. Not for revenge, but because it affects public medical funds and patient interests. In the following days, through the hospital's public financial reports and equipment usage records, he compiled a comprehensive report listing all suspicious equipment purchases and price anomalies. At the same time, he submitted a formal divorce application, citing irreconcilable differences. 3 days later, the Medical Association received an anonymous report detailing possible kickback transactions between the community hospital and Biotech Medical. That same day, Iris received the divorce papers, not realizing that a storm was approaching. Zoe's wedding was set at a mansion by a picturesque lake. As guests gradually arrived, the community hospital's directors were holding an emergency meeting. The Medical Association's preliminary investigation showed that over the past 6 months, the hospital had paid Reed's company 20% to 30% above normal market price for equipment, with a total amount close to $1 million. Worse, investigators tracked several suspicious deposits to Iris's private account and evidence of her ambiguous relationship with Reed. The hospital board immediately decided to suspend Iris from her duties and cooperate with the investigation. The morning of the wedding, Iris had just finished her hair and makeup and was about to change into her bridesmaid dress when she received a call from the hospital's personnel department. On the phone, the HR director coldly informed her, due to her alleged involvement in improper conduct in medical equipment procurement, she was immediately suspended, pending further investigation. This must be a misunderstanding, Iris defended. I only followed the hospital procedures for the procurement process. Investigators found that your personal account received large sums from a Biotech Medical executive, the HR director replied. At the same time, your personal relationship has also been documented. Iris, this already exceeds the scope of a simple misunderstanding. After hanging up, Iris's phone immediately received a text from Reed. The hospital board just notified me I'm suspended. Someone reported us. How's your situation? She frantically replied. I'm suspended too. What do we do? Stay calm. Destroy all possible evidence. I'm contacting a lawyer. Does your husband know about this? Iris then remembered Ethan. Since he left, she had only thought he was angry about being excluded from the wedding. She had never imagined he might have discovered her relationship with Reed, let alone the kickback deal. No, he's just a worker who handles garbage. He couldn't understand these things, she replied, still with disdain in her tone. Just then, she received the divorce documents sent by the court. She looked shocked at the date on the documents. Ethan had filed the application 3 days ago, coinciding exactly with when the Medical Association began its investigation. My God, it was him, she murmured. Ethan reported us. With panic and anger intertwined, Iris began frantically calling Ethan, but only heard the voicemail message. She also tried to contact Reed, but his phone was turned off. Then, She received a call from her lawyer, informing her of the possible legal consequences: conspiracy to defraud, accepting kickbacks, breach of trust. Each charge could result in jail time and substantial fines. Meanwhile, Zoe and the family also noticed something was wrong. When Iris told them Ethan wouldn't be attending the wedding, they felt confused and concerned. "What's going on? Did you two have a fight?" Zoe asked. "Nothing, just a small disagreement." Iris lied, trying to maintain calm. But when the family learned she had been suspended from the hospital and received divorce papers, the situation became difficult to control. Zoe and her parents took turns trying to contact Ethan, wanting to know the truth. The wedding was held as scheduled, but the atmosphere was tense. Iris maintained a forced smile, but her insides were already shattered. When she saw Reed appear among the guests, she panicked. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly to Reed as he approached. Reed's face was grim. "Do you know how those hospital people found out about us? Someone reported us. It must have been your husband." "Impossible, he doesn't understand these things," Iris stubbornly asserted. Reed laughed coldly. "Then why did the investigation start at the same time you received the divorce papers? He's much smarter than you think." Halfway through the wedding, several men in suits entered the mansion. They went directly to Reed and showed their credentials. "Mr. Reed, we are FBI agents. You are accused of alleged medical fraud and bribing public officials. Please come with us." The entire wedding venue fell into chaos. Zoe's groom's family looked at this scene in shock. Guests whispered, and Iris stood there, with weak legs, almost about to fall. "Are you okay?" Zoe asked her sister with concern. Iris shook her head, collapsing for the first time in front of her family. "Ethan knew everything. He left me. Now, I might go to jail." The wedding ended in chaos. That night, the media reported on this medical fraud case. Reed was detained, facing up to 20 years in prison and millions of dollars in fines. As an accomplice, Iris, although temporarily not arrested, the medical association had already initiated procedures to revoke her nursing license. In the following weeks, Ethan immersed himself in work, trying to forget the past pain. He moved into a small apartment and began a new life. Although there was still pain in his heart, he did not regret his decision. One day, he found a letter from Iris in his mailbox. In it, she cried about how difficult her situation was, how she had been fired from the hospital, how she faced losing her license, and how much she regretted hurting him. At the end of the letter, she asked for forgiveness and a chance to start over. Ethan read the letter, then quietly tore it into pieces and threw it in the trash. No anger, no sadness, just a complete farewell to the past. He took his phone and blocked all of Iris's contact methods. A few days later, he went to what was once their shared home to collect his last personal belongings. The house was for sale, and part of the money would be used for Iris's legal expenses. When he opened the closet, he found that wedding photo from 6 years ago. In the photo, Iris smiled radiantly, and he looked happy. For an instant, the sweet memories of the past surfaced, but were soon covered by the pain of betrayal. He was about to leave when suddenly the doorbell rang. Opening the door, he saw a thin and haggard Iris. "May I come in?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at her coldly. "I was just about to leave. Say what you need to say here." Iris's eyes shimmered with tears. "I've lost everything, Ethan. Job, license, friends. Even my family is completely disappointed in me. Legal expenses have almost depleted my savings. Now I have nothing." "That's the result of your own choices," Ethan said calmly. "Every decision has its consequences. It was you who reported us, wasn't it?" Iris finally asked the question that had been on her mind. "I reported medical fraud behavior," Ethan corrected. "Those artificially inflated priced equipment, ultimately paid for by patients and taxpayers. As a citizen, I had a responsibility to report it." Iris's expression suddenly turned furious. "You ruined my life. Just because I said some nasty things about your job? Because I didn't want you, a garbage handler, to appear at my sister's wedding?" "No." Ethan shook his head with a firm gaze. "I didn't ruin anyone's life. It was your own choices that led to all this. You not only betrayed our marriage, but also participated in medical fraud. And even now, you still don't recognize your mistakes, only regret what you've lost." Iris suddenly changed tactics, her gaze softening. "Ethan, please. I know I was wrong. I was blinded by money and vanity. We can start over, I promise I'll change. No, Iris, Ethan firmly refused. Some boundaries, once crossed, can never be crossed again. I don't feel anything for you anymore, just complete disappointment. Please leave, and don't contact me again. He walked to the door, indicating the conversation was over. Iris stood there, her expression changing from pleading to irritation. You'll regret this, Ethan, she said coldly. Without me, you're still just a pathetic garbage handler. Ethan smiled slightly. At least I'm an honest one. Goodbye, Iris. I hope you can take responsibility for your actions, instead of always looking for excuses and scapegoats. He closed the door, completely cutting ties with the past. In that moment, he felt a sense of lightness and relief he hadn't experienced in a long time. The divorce proceedings were smoothly completed 2 months later. At the same time, the investigation into the medical fraud case also entered its final stage. Reed was sentenced by the court to 15 years in prison and had his medical equipment sales license permanently revoked. In addition, he had to pay millions of dollars in fines. During the trial, to reduce his sentence, Reed detailed the entire kickback scheme, including how he bribed hospital administrators and head nurses to obtain equipment procurement contracts. Iris avoided jail by testifying against Reed, but her professional career and social reputation were completely destroyed. The Medical Association and State Nursing Committee jointly revoked her nursing license, citing serious professional ethical violations and breach of trust behavior. Additionally, she was ordered to return all illegally gained kickbacks and pay substantial fines. Without a job or license, burdened with enormous debt, Iris was forced to sell all her luxury items and properties. Finally, she could only move to a small town hundreds of miles away, working as a basic caregiver in a nursing home, with a salary of only 1/5 of what she earned before. No longer facing looks of respect and admiration, but indifferent attitudes and whispers behind her back. I heard that new caregiver was once a head nurse, whispered a colleague. She was fired for taking bribes. She deserves it, another responded. Using patient money to buy luxury items, it's completely immoral. These rumors followed her like a shadow, not allowing her to escape her past. More ironically, when she asked her parents and sister for help, the response was also cold. You betrayed Ethan and participated in medical fraud, her father said seriously. We love you, but you must take responsibility for your actions. Meanwhile, Reed was having difficult days in prison. His former executive status and luxurious life became a distant memory, replaced by the monotony and humiliation of life behind bars. He tried to contact Iris, hoping she could provide some financial support, but all his letters went unanswered. She abandoned me, Reed told a prison mate. When I still had value to her, she did everything I said. Now, she doesn't even bother to respond to a letter. Ironically, Reed finally recognized the error of his actions in prison. He participated in professional ethics courses in jail, and even began giving talks as a negative example for young offenders. But these changes didn't help his actual situation at all. He still had to serve his full sentence, and his future professional career was ruined. For Ethan, life began to improve. His work performance was recognized by the management of the sewage treatment plant, especially a new filtration technology he developed, which saved the city a considerable amount in treatment costs. 8 months later, he was promoted to senior technician, responsible for managing the entire filtration system department. You deserve it, Ethan, his supervisor said when announcing the promotion. Your professional knowledge and diligent attitude are an example for the entire team. Besides work success, Ethan also began rebuilding his social circle. He joined a local environmental organization, using his professional experience to help with community water resource conservation projects. During a riverbank cleanup activity, he met Mia, an environmental scientist. I heard you're a technician at the sewage treatment plant, Mia asked during a break. Ethan was somewhat guarded, prepared to face possible contempt. But Mia's next words surprised him. That's great. I've always been interested in water treatment technology. Your work is crucial for the entire ecosystem, but rarely gets attention. In the subsequent conversation, Ethan discovered that Mia shared a similar passion for environmental protection. She genuinely asked about the details of his work and even expressed her desire to visit the sewage treatment plant. Most people don't want to set foot in that dirty place, Ethan said half-jokingly. Mia shook her head, smiling. Only those who don't understand the value think that way. I believe the people who handle our daily waste are true heroes. Without you, this city would drown in its own garbage. At that moment, Ethan felt a sense of understanding and respect he hadn't experienced in a long time. He began to realize that a truly compatible partner doesn't judge you by your social status or money, but appreciates your values and contributions. 5 years later, Reed received a sentence reduction for good behavior in prison and continued cooperation in investigating other medical fraud cases. The judge reduced his 15-year sentence to 10 years and allowed him the opportunity for parole after serving 5 years. The news media reported on Reed's parole, generating some controversy. But the Reed who left prison discovered he had lost everything: profession, reputation, wealth, even health. Prison life had prematurely aged him, his once handsome appearance replaced by emaciation and bitterness. "I'm going to start over," he said in an interview for a local newspaper. "Although I can't return to the medical industry, I hope to use my experience to warn others." However, reality was much crueler than he imagined. No company was willing to hire someone with fraud convictions, especially in the medical industry. Finally, Reed could only find work at a fast food restaurant, facing oil smoke and customer complaints every day, with a salary barely enough to pay rent for his small apartment. Iris, after working for 5 years in the nursing home, continued to have a difficult life. When she learned that Reed had obtained parole, in her desperation, she saw a ray of hope. Perhaps they could reconnect, face difficulties together? She gathered the courage to send Reed a text message, but the response she received was a cold rejection, as if she had forgotten her own betrayal when Reed was imprisoned. "Don't contact me again, Iris," Reed wrote in his response. "It was you who seduced me into those transactions. When I still had value to you, you obeyed me in everything. But when I wrote to you there was no response. We just used each other. And now we've both paid the price. I don't want to see you again." This last straw completely broke Iris. Not only had she lost her career and reputation, but she had also been completely abandoned by the two men she once believed she loved. Most ironic was that she had looked down on Ethan's profession, and now, her job at the nursing home was more lowly and exhausting than a cleaner's. During this same period, Ethan's life continued to steadily progress. His relationship with Mia gradually deepened, and the two began planning a future together. After 2 years working at the sewage treatment plant, he was promoted to technical supervisor, responsible for upgrading and transforming the entire treatment system. His professional skills and innovative ideas received widespread recognition in the industry, and he was even invited to present at academic conferences on environmental engineering. "You know what?" Mia said to Ethan during a dinner, smiling. "I've always admired your passion and dedication to your work. Those who didn't see your value, it's their loss." Ethan held Mia's hand, his heart full of gratitude. He had completely put the pain of the past behind him, focusing on the present and future. The affairs of Iris and Reed had become a distant memory. He no longer felt anger or sadness about them. "We all have freedom of choice," he responded. "But each choice has its corresponding responsibility and consequences. I choose to do what I believe is right, however ordinary it may seem." Now, looking back at that marriage and betrayal, Ethan understood it was a necessary lesson. It taught him that true value doesn't lie in appearances and social acceptance, but in inner honesty and adherence to one's own choices. When a relationship is built on falsehood and materialism, it will inevitably collapse under the pressure of reality. And Iris, in her day-to-day at the nursing home, finally began facing her mistakes. Without luxury items and social status, she was forced to directly face the vanity and greed in her heart. Each time she cared for those lonely elderly people, she remembered the kindness and integrity Ethan once showed. But she knew that some damage, once done, can never be repaired. Some paths, once chosen, have no way back. This is the truth of life. Each choice guides us toward different destinies, and respect, honesty, and integrity are the values that truly withstand the test of time. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content. We look forward to seeing you in our next story.